Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the R Squared podcast. My name is Rajat.
And this is your boy Rishman here. What's up, everyone?
And today we have a guest that we have been trying to get on for such a long time, Rishi. Hey, this guy is so busy all the time. I think we had to book him 1 year in advance to get him on this podcast, even though the podcast only started a few months ago.
Honestly, I agree with you. I've come to UK. I've stayed at this guy's house for the past, I think, 2 years. I have not seen him there.
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah. yeah. We had to book him so long in advance, way before we even started the podcast, because we didn't know when his days were free. But finally, after much blood, sweat, and tears, we finally got him on. Um, we have with us today Kushil Gudka, who is an electrical engineer at Arup, which is a consultancy firm. Kushil, thanks for finally coming on.
Wow. I feel privileged to be here, huh? But in my defense, I feel everyone plans to come and see me when I'm conveniently somewhere else. So I don't know if it's my fault or others are planning it in that way. But anyway, we are here.
We are here. You finally made it. Finally made it. So Kushil, as I said, you're an electrical engineer. So can you just briefly tell us about what you do?
An electrical engineer. It's a big word,
Yes.
huh? One, I can tell you from 4 years of university, the most important thing I learned as an electrical engineer is if you want to fix an electrical item, the first thing and the only thing you should do is switch it off, try switch it on again. And if it doesn't switch on, I think that's the end. Put it in the bin and get something new. So that's 4 years of electrical engineering I can summarize for you. Um, Now I work as a building services engineer. So again, electrical, but in building services. So I work at a firm called Arup, as Rajat mentioned, and Arup is basically a building design or infrastructure, design firm. We have a group of architects, engineers, consultants who come together to design some amazing buildings and projects. And some famous projects that you might have heard of across the globe. I think what put us on the map was the Sydney Opera House, if any of you know that.
Wow. Wow. Nice. So actually, we'll get onto some of those projects later on. Can you delve a bit deeper into the detail of what exactly you do?
Yeah, so as an electrical engineer, my role primarily is so I mean I guess just for the viewers, or the listeners rather, sorry.
Correct.
Correct, yeah. Because I can see you guys, but I can also hear you. Um, yeah, so for the listeners, it's basically how an electrical system works is there is some generation that is done remotely. So you'll have power stations, for example, Drax, or others that are there in the UK or across the globe everywhere, and they generate power, electricity, which is then transmitted through a network of cables and buses or whatever. Um, and that goes through the network operator, and then finally it comes down to either getting it to the final consumers, so whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, and it's split around that. So my job primarily comes in once we're working for a client. We identify what sort of power requirements they have, so we do some very high level calculations to determine what sort of requirements they will have, and based on that we will liaise with the network operator to see how much power they have available within that area, get that. And once that is confirmed, we have uh, basically we've secured this much power for them. Then we carry out the rest of the building design or the project design, to supply that power within the building to basically supply different parts of the building, whether it's ventilation systems, yeah, lights, power, like the sockets, and all that things.
Nice. And then let's get into some of the projects. You mentioned Sydney Opera House, which I'm guessing that you weren't a part of.
I wasn't.
But
I wasn't.
yeah,
Maybe I might have. I mean, I wasn't born. I wasn't born yet, but
yeah.
maybe in my past life, I was the chief engineer or something. I don't know.
Wow. So you were born to be in this role. Is that what you were saying?
Oh.
Well,
we'll
yeah,
we'll
we'll
leave.
come on to that.
We'll come to that. Yeah, we'll come to
Let
Yeah,
me
that.
let me
yeah.
let me throw you in a different question on that note actually. So apart from UK and those projects you mentioned, like where else have you worked outside of UK?
I have, I mean, paid job. I have not worked anywhere apart from the UK. If any tax bosses are listening to this conversation, I pay my taxes in the UK. I don't have an income anywhere else in the world.
Wait, wait, wait,
But
wait. After just to interrupt you on that note as well. After taxes, you don't have an income at all, correct? Um,
wow. Okay. Yes. That is true. That is a topic very close to my heart. It stings me every time. Every time. But yes. I mean, the sacrifices we make. The
Yeah.
sacrifices we have to make
sadly.
for the rest
But
of.
yeah, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, my background basically. I mean, I was born and brought up in Kenya.
Woohoo!
Lived there till I was 18 years old. Woo. And yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time just following my parents, my cousins. They're all in different businesses in Kenya. So probably that's the exposure I have probably. But aside from that, not much. I mean, I'm very curious to always visit, different factories or different businesses just to see how things work and, basically just understand the processes and all of that stuff. Um, but from a work point of view, yeah, I mean, this is my first job at Arab, and my only job at this point. So, yeah.
And Kushal, then what are some of the projects that you have worked on or are working on at the moment? Some key projects that you think are quite interesting to talk
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, so I'll just give you a brief of some of the projects or industries I've worked on. So in the 4 years, so I've been at Arab for 4 years, and I started working initially on commercial projects. So basically, high rise commercial buildings within London, and then I also worked on rail projects within London. So one of them is like Crossrail, so which is the new Elizabeth line, and then I worked on a few other rail projects, and I moved into aviation projects. I worked on a few airports, and yeah, so I did that for about 2.5 years, and then I moved to basically mission critical buildings, so data centers and hospitals and substations and things like that. Um, yeah, so
And wait, sorry to interrupt. Did you say mission critical?
yes, so they usually buildings that have high level of electrical or general resilience is required. So usually we
Okay.
don't want these buildings to fail in any form. So hospitals is an example of that. They're running, most hospitals that would be working on will be running at full time, and you can't have any sort of failure. I mean, there is redundancy, and there's another level of redundancy beyond that as well, so to make sure that nothing goes wrong.
Hmm.
So that's how basically
Yeah. Okay.
the
And so,
industry
what
works.
exactly are you doing to make sure these are super resilient?
Usually, I think it's driven by, it's industry driven. So if you're in a healthcare industry, you're following healthcare memorandums, which determine what level of resilience you require for different areas in a building. So, for example, I recently worked on a hospital building in London, which is currently under construction. It's the Oriel Moorfields Eye Hospital, and so basically, for example, in a building of that sort, so you have operating theaters, which will be classed as the highest priority. So if there is an operation going on, regardless of what happens, if whether it's a fire or there's a power outage or whatever it is, the operation still has to go on, or you have to safely stabilize the patient before you can stop doing whatever you stop, like
And sorry, sorry.
the
Let me just
operation.
interrupt you there before I forget.
Yeah, sorry.
In the regards to fire, especially because that's a big one. Like if, for example, any electrical fault leading to a fire or a spark in a home, house, or industry, what would be your first, responding case? Like, what would you do? And what would you advise everyone to do?
I'm not a fire specialist, so I honestly wouldn't know how to give the correct advice on that. But just as I mean, um, if it's something very small and you think you can fight it, then probably you should. But in most cases, I think the first course of action should be safe evacuation. Leave everything that is there and get out of the building. I think safety of humans is always the first priority, is what I would say. Don't worry about your belongings and stuff like that. But I mean, these are things that can be avoided a lot, especially if it's electrical causes. Usually, good design and maintenance of these things usually are good enough to avoid it. But in the cases where it does happen, I think the first course of action is to evacuate. Sometimes you may think you can fight it, but it might not be the best course of
No, I mean,
action. So
honestly, fair enough, fair enough. And just a random, completely random question. View it how you want to, but any advice you'd give to general, homeowners when they have any electrical works? So I don't know how to sum up the question, but in a sense, how to help homeowners save money on electricity, electrical appliances, how they manage their electrical problems. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to get at, because like in
yeah,
the
yeah,
UK,
I
these
get what you're
services are
saying.
very expensive. So how can they actually save money? Or if there's an issue, how can they sort it themselves? Where do they go? How do they look for it? That.
Yeah, so I think so. You always have to get a certified contractor. You cannot save money by doing it yourself. You should always get someone who is certified to do it, because then in the future that avoids, some of the issues you're talking about, where there can be, fires due to short circuits or due to faults that should not have been there. Because usually electrical systems, especially in the UK, we have strict regulations that govern a lot of these things, and they're in place to ensure that you don't have these issues. So basically, you should not cut costs by not going to a certified contractor. Make sure you go to somebody who is certified, a certified electrician, or a certified contractor. But where you can probably save is, you do your research around, find out the right people and the right uh, products. But I mean, I think there is a lot of options in savings, especially towards the drive to renewables. I think a lot of people are installing, for example, solar panels in their houses. So those are ways probably you can save in the long term, in terms of the electricity cost. Something I would not recommend is trying to save money on installation itself, because you would rather get that right and get it done right, than do it yourself, because it's first, it's illegal to do it yourself, and second, you don't want to save, I don't know, 100 200 pounds, destroy property worth millions. So
So just the last one for me, not a question but a statement. But yeah, all to all the listeners there, you heard that right. If you're gonna save a penny today, it might cost you a fortune tomorrow. You might as well get the job done properly now. It will save a lot of effort, time, and money later. So I mean, as you heard it from a professional, that yeah, stick to the plan. To be honest. All right, over to you, Raju.
Uh, yeah. Well, going back to the hospital, I think we digressed a bit, but
yes, yeah.
that is fine. Yes. So I forgot where we left off, but if you
Yeah, I
want to
think I was talking
continue
about.
from
Yeah, I was probably speaking about some rooms, different rooms in the hospitals. We are talking
yeah,
about the resiliency in like a healthcare setting. So, I mean, if you look at, for example, in a hospital, you have operating theaters. In an operating theater, for example, you know, as I was mentioning, whatever external circumstances that are happening, if there is a fault or if there is any issue which is not within the operating theater, you still want one, either the operation to go ahead, and if there is a risk that whatever is going on outside can impact what is happening inside the operating theater, then the second thing I think you would do is stabilize the patient and prepare for evacuation or whatever you have to do then. But then in all those cases, whatever happens, you have to have your power, all your services that critical services that you need while the operation is going on, whether you're using medical equipment, whether it's the lights, or whether whatever systems you have within have to still be operating. So they have the highest level of resilience, and so whatever happens, they will still run. Whether it's a fire, whether it's there's a power outage, because there's usually secondary or even multiple backups in terms of power as well. Um, and then in
So
operating theaters, one
is that
sorry, yeah.
essentially what resilience is? That having multiple backups, or like is it to do with
Yes,
other
exactly.
aspects?
So resiliency is mainly to do with backups and failures. So if there is a failure of one thing, basically the whole intention is to avoid single points of failure. One thing should not stop everything from going down. So usually, you you're looking at designing in such a way that if there is a fault on a cable, or if there is a fault further upstream or downstream, it should not impact other services which are outside that area. So that's primarily what we try to do. So you use different, you have backup generators. You use UPSs. So I don't know if you know what UPSs are. They're basically uninterruptible power supplies. So basically generators take about 10 to 15 seconds to start up. So if you have a power outage, as I said, it's very critical to make sure that you have continuous power. Now, in those 10 to 15 seconds, usually this UPS has batteries, and the batteries take over for a few minutes before or a few seconds, as I mentioned, before the generator has started, and is ramped up to take up the full load of the building. So that's usually the sort of arrangement that happens. Of course, then there is fire resiliency, and different things can cause failures, and you consider all those different, whether it's a fire, whether it's a power outage, whether it's a failure of equipment. So you look at the different ones. What is the severity of it? What are the probabilities of it happening? And then the regulations also mention how to solve all of these as well. So in the UK, I mean, at least you basically have regulations that stipulate what should be done, or what are the typical arrangements that you should follow. And then,
Yeah,
yeah, of course, ultimately it's governed by the client as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you mentioned databases as well. So how are they similar in terms of resiliency to hospitals? How do they differ? Could you expand a bit more on that?
Yeah, so data centers are growing importance. I mean, with the increase now in AI, I mean, computing power in general. I mean, everyone is using a lot of computers, storage, cloud storage, and basically, since COVID, you've probably seen, everyone is working from home, and so there's increased requirements for like networks, and like remote working and all of that. So there's of course an increase in uptake in the demand for data centers, and all of that. And now with AI, and the boost in AI, I guess there will be an further increase in
Let me
that.
let me interrupt you for 1 second there. Usually my question is AI, but you're talking about it, so I will not ask you on that. But I appreciate you giving me the answer to my, oncoming question that was supposed to come.
Perfect. I like it. I was preempting this. I was already preempting. I was like, Rishi is thinking about
Guys,
this.
guys,
I will answer
everyone,
it.
like to all the listeners, you see how clever this guy is. He knows his stuff. He even
Yeah, yeah.
predicted my question. This guy's going
That's
to,
why.
get me
Yeah,
jobless on the podcast. What am I going to say next? I don't.
that's why it's so hard to get hold of. He just
Hard,
knows
very hard to get.
everything that's
Exactly.
coming. Yeah,
Yeah.
There we
And
go.
also,
There
if
we go.
if anyone looking for uh, easy answers to easy questions, always get back to me.
yeah,
I'm very
yeah.
good with that.
We'll put your
All
contact
right.
details in the episode
Put my
description.
contact, exactly. Put
Yeah,
my
you
Yeah,
heard
contact
that. You heard
details.
that, everyone. Feel free to reach out to him. But yeah, sorry. Carry on.
yeah,
Carry on.
Yeah. So I was saying, with data centers, basically, it's you because they usually, you don't want any power outage, because if you have a power outage, then you have a loss of data. Now again, the criticality of it is dependent on what sort of data it is. Some you can do with it switching off and switching back on, and with some you can't, because you can lose a lot of data, but at the same time you can lose a lot of money with it. So it's more financial, and of course there is the aspect of how much, like whether it's banking data, or people are doing other different secure or high secure or high confidential items that they're working on, highly confidential items. Then you probably don't want them to lose their data, or you don't want to transfer that data elsewhere. So you have to keep those servers going. So from that point of view, those always have to be on. And I think for data centers, I think it mainly comes down to different tiers of the so data centers are classified in different tiers. So there's like tier one, two, three, with um, the level of resiliency as we were discussing. And basically, the highest ones just never shut off. You can have a complete power outage, they will have full generator backup. Um, and then they will have redundant blocks as well. So if you basically lose one whole block, you can transfer all your data load to another block to make sure that there is always something there. So you're basically never losing it. It mainly comes down to cost. I think you I mean, I don't know the exact figures right now, but I was reading an article a few months ago, and they classified like what is a power outage and what is the equivalent cost of it for every hour that you don't have power or you've lost. And it was somewhere in the millions. Like you're looking at, and it was not just data centers, there was healthcare facilities, there were other very important buildings. So it's a very client driven requirement, but it's also is dependent on what they do and what the requirements are, right? So yeah, you look at it, I guess, on a case to case basis, probably.
Yeah. So for those data centers that have the highest level of resiliency, does that mean that in theory the backups are turning on at exactly the same moment as the power is switching off?
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is that, so I mean, now electrical protection in general is very advanced. It's things happen very instantaneously. It's all electronic trips rather than mechanical. So it's not really that many moving parts, more electronic trips, with transistors and all of that, with the technology improving so drastically over the last 20-30 years. We've moved away from more I mean, there are of course mechanical parts, but it's less so. And basically it occurs almost instantaneously. So if there's a detection that power has been lost here, so again, UPSs will be the first point of action where they will kick in, and like the batteries will support the load for a certain duration. Usually they're sized for 5 to 8 minutes, or not usually longer, but probably 5 to 8 minutes, just to allow, like, if generators do not start up, then you can restart that whole process and just give a little bit of a buffer. But within about a minute or even less than a minute, you'll have all your generators ramping up, and then they will take over the full load. So basically the buffer is the UPS system there.
Okay. And then in terms of designing all this, what sort of softwares are you using, and what's the influence of, well, AI in that designing process to understand the power supply needed and the certain resilience needed? Could you expand a bit on that?
I mean, of course, it's very powerful. I think. I mean, I think looking at, the wider topic of AI in what we do, um, is somewhat there. I mean, it's not probably exactly in the definition of what people know AI as, but there is always some aspect of machine learning or constant learning where because ultimately you're converging to a right result, right? To a result that is optimal in terms of different factors. And I think what AI basically does is you can put multiple, or millions of use cases or different data points, and it can process that data much faster than what a human can. And so it can converge to a value, to a more accurate value, much faster than any of us can manually do. So from that point of view, of course, there is a huge use, like a huge use case for it. um, how much it is being used, I mean, it's very difficult to say, because in today's time, I think the design we do is mainly driven by software. So it's primarily the software developers who will implement these, or who will upgrade it. And we have in-house people also who are continuously working on seeing how we can implement, in different techniques or different strategies to basically improve our work. So we use a lot of softwares to do the calculations. So yeah, for protection studies, or whether it is, just modeling the whole system. So you'll typically will model the whole system, see what the flow is, because there are a few things you want to make sure. You want to make sure that your system is never overloaded. You always have sufficient power to give what you want to supply, or what your load is. And then you're also looking at different things, like because we're actually building physical buildings. So we have limited space, so we use softwares like Autodesk, or Revit, so to 3D model everything. And the level of detail we go to is quite significant, in terms of you model every containment, every pipe work, so that basically when you go to site, we're very confident that it can be built, without clashes, and that sort. If that somewhat answers your question.
No, yeah, no, definitely does. Um, Now, I'm also curious. So we spoke to Yash a while
Yeah,
back, someone you may know quite well,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he's obviously a structural engineer, and he described he works with a lot of there are a lot of parties involved in the whole designing and constructing of a building. There's obviously the structural engineering side, there's the architect, client, mechanical engineer, etc., etc. And if I'm not wrong, from your side as well, there must be a lot of parties involved in the designing of a certain database or hospital or anything. And so, how is that? Because I think the word Yash used was chaos. So, is it chaos working with
It is
everyone?
chaos. It is probably organized chaos, or I don't know
Okay.
how to probably just, I think, yeah, it is chaos. I think Yash rightly described it as chaos. But I think the beauty is also in that. I think the construction industry in general, I think, in my opinion, is one of the most difficult industries to actually work in. To be good in the construction industry, and to deliver projects that are first, on a timely manner. So to deliver projects when you say you're going to deliver, and also eventually that they can make a profit for everyone involved, whether it's the consultants, whether it's the contractors, whether it's the client. To do all of that, I think it's very challenging compared to other industries, and primarily because these projects last a long time, very long time. Even if you want to build a small building, the design starts probably a year, 2 years, and then it goes on for a few years, from the start of, like, you have that plan to by the time you complete it, it's a few years. And if you're looking at, I mean, if you take the example of, like, Crossrail, for example, it is 30 years, which is huge. Like, imagine 30 years is, I've not even been on, on this planet for that long. Or if you look at projects like, high rise buildings in London, maybe the Shard, or if you take the example of, I don't know, Bishopsgate, or different buildings of that sort, like 40, 50-story buildings. Construction is probably 8 to 10 years, maybe, or somewhat, depending on, I mean, different factors, of course, but it can take up to that long. And then the planning before that, is even more, so, like, I mean, you're looking at from planning to completion of about, I don't know, 15, 20 years, for projects. And I mean, that's quite a lot, I think. I mean, of course, if you're good at it, and some projects seamlessly go through the whole stages of design and construction, they may do it faster. But generally, my point is, it just takes long to get these buildings done. So, and so it's very difficult to basically make sure that you're not running over cost, because, like, you still have to pay people salaries for this duration. You still have to pay for rising costs, like, the inflation is increasing all the time. So the cost of equipment is always increasing. So what you had planned for initially, and what you end up paying for, there's this drastic change. And what that ends up in is, like, everyone is somewhat losing money, and then you have to all work together to solve it. And as Yash had mentioned previously, you have so many people involved. There's a structural engineer who's designing it, there's an architect, um, We have electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, public health engineers. Then you'll have, I don't know, sound specialists, acoustic specialists, because there are regulations around, this much noise cannot go in while construction. This much noise should not, to not disturb your surroundings, or even while once it's built. What is the impact to your neighbors, to your surroundings? Then you have specialists who are looking at, the acoustics within the building. You have facade specialists. You have ecologists who are looking at, what is the impact on the environment. So it's like a whole village of people, like it's crazy, and each person is doing an important role. They're ultimately, we're trying to ensure that, yes, the building works for the people who are going to be in it, the client, for, and also make sure at the same time people within, or within the surrounding areas are also not impacted negatively, or rather impacted positively by this. And all of that, just to get all of that together, I mean, it is chaos, because everyone, like, the ecologist will come and, like, we have a species of bats here that we need to protect, which is amazing. I mean, I honestly would not think about it, but, like, when you actually think about it from a macro point of view, it's amazing that we are actually concerned about, the environment, and,
Yeah.
the animals and the different species around. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we build something that is meaningful for the client and for people, create employment, and all that sort. But to get all of that done, try and meet everyone's requirements is very difficult, very difficult. And I mean, sometimes, you may fail to do that, but in a lot of cases, I think there is there is the target that you want to meet all these requirements, and that is why it's just chaos. It is
Mm.
chaos, but I think the beauty is when it all comes together. um, I think that working relationship, and you, with different people, and I think you develop that skill, which is quite useful, and quite, I think it's amazing to work with different people. I think there is a sense of accomplishment, I think, once you finish a project, especially given the duration and the challenges that you have to overcome, in these projects. I think it's that there is that. But so, I mean, there are challenges, but at the same time, on the upside is that, there is tremendous benefit to doing these. So
Yeah. Wow. That was very, very well put, I must say.
Yeah,
Very well
yeah,
put.
I definitely agree there.
Yeah. Yeah. So now let's go a bit away now from your professional life and go into something that you do outside work, which I would argue to some extent probably takes up as much, if not more, of your time than your full-time job. So you volunteer at an organization, like a spiritual organization. So do you want to expand a bit more about firstly what the organization does and then what you do as well?
yeah, so I have been following a spiritual organization since I was fairly young, probably 9 or 10 years old. Various circumstances led me to it. So my family was involved, or they found out about it, and then I got involved. And then a few circumstances within my life led me to, being part of it. So the organization is called, basically, Dada Pakwan Foundation. So if anyone is interested, I mean, you can search for it. There is a website, which is dadapakwan.org. Basically, it is a spiritual organization, as Rajat mentioned. So the primary goal is to get, like, self-realization, or, know yourself, and then with the right understanding, you know live your life, basically. I probably won't do too much justice in describing every aspect of it, or what exactly it is. But what I can share is the profound experience it has had on me, and it has probably, impacted how I look at, every aspect of my life, whether it is work, how I deal with relationships, or how I deal with, just generally, overcoming challenges of life, or even just, enjoying the small pleasures of life. So yeah, I mean, for me, it has had a profound, impact in my life, and that is why I have been, involved with them for a long time. Um, and yeah, and as you would say, I mean, I do spend time there, a lot of time. I mean, somewhat, I would like to spend, more time there, but however much time I can, I do spend there. And it's more about, I think, um, basically, I mean, it's changed my life, so I feel like, how can I help the organization in whatever their goal is, in terms of whether it is, spreading peace and happiness across the globe, in whatever small part I can play. I'm not going to go and give talks to people, or inspire people to change their lives, but more so just facilitate, in any small way I can, to help, if whoever is coming or who is going, in whatever way I can. So that's mainly what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can you share then one or two aspects of it which has influenced the way you live life outside that? Things that have changed your decision making or your attitude to certain things. What are some of the things that have impacted it?
Yeah. So I mean, so Da Bhagwan himself was the first. I mean, before I get back to your specific question, just to
Just also
just
also
cover
just
a
for anyone
whole.
who doesn't
Sorry, yeah.
understand Gujarati, Bhagwan means God. So yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yes, yes. Bhagwan means God, but yeah. I mean, I don't want to go too much into the detail of it, because I personally wouldn't do justice to Dada Bhagwan himself, or the height he's at. So uh, I would, if you are interested, feel free to go and visit the websites, and if you have questions, you can get in touch with people there who will be able to answer your questions. So but what I just want to say is, yeah, I mean, Dada Bhagwan is the spiritual, or is the founder, and is the spiritual head. Um, um, Currently, the spiritual head is Pujashri Deepak Pai. But so the one thing, or recently, that I heard, I mean, there are a lot of things that have it's a constant learning process, constant process of growing and developing. But so I think one thing recently, or might have heard a few months ago, or came across it, that resonated really well with me, and I thought, I've been seeing that, I've been looking at it more closely in the last few months, is so one thing that Pujashri mentioned was the what is the definition of success, and this was a question, this was an answer to somebody's question, and I don't remember exactly what the question was, but I mean, this bit of the answer just resonated with me very, very much. And so the what is the definition of success? And for me, for a long, I mean, till now, success and failure is dependent, I mean, is dependent on results. Whether I get a job, whether I get a promotion, whether I get a high pay rise, I don't know, stuff like that, basically, or whether I get appreciated for the work I've done. But he had a very, very unique point of view, in that he's like, but do you really have control on that? And that got me thinking, and then he said that, so what is, or what should be, the definition of success is you putting 100% of effort, and then forget about the result. Well, it didn't really say forget about it, but that's what I would just put it as, that forget about the result. And I thought about it for a while, and I was like, wait a minute, it makes a huge difference, because the only thing I can control is my effort. So I want to put 100% of the effort in whatever I do, and sometimes the result may be favorable, and sometimes it may not be favorable. But I cannot call myself a failure when if I'm applying for jobs, or I'm applying, and I'm constantly getting rejected. That doesn't mean I'm a failure. I am putting in 100% of my effort into these applications, and that is what I can do, because ultimately, me getting a job or not getting a job is dependent on so many factors. It could be just that the interviewer that day, I don't know, had a fight with someone before he came, or something like that, and that could affect his whole mood and his whole outlook of the way he looks at me. But I mean, at the same time, it's not to take away myself, or the blame, or any mistakes I have made. If there is a failure in result, I mean, of course, I would look at it and see if there are ways I can improve. But I mean, this is just a small example of what I've seen recently, or of been thinking of a lot recently, in
Let
terms
me
of that. And I think, yeah,
just
sorry.
sorry. Let me cut in just to, so you can tie this what you are saying with the question I have actually, and it is a very interesting thing. What advice would you give? Considering how much experience you've had with your organization, and the fact that you're also employed with a very big firm. So you're earning money on the one side, and you're also following a very spiritual organization that's helping a lot of people. What advice would you give to people where I feel like they are stuck, right, in between finding happiness, like, and also looking and going following for money, like finances. you know I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Like, they really want to follow finances, they want to get the money, they want to be stable, sustainable in life, and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes they're sacrificing their happiness, which could be, just something else completely. How would you interpret that question, and like, what advice would you give?
I think it's. I mean, I get what you're saying. I think it's a question that a lot of people have. I think, I want to do all these things. I want to do different things. It's not just spirituality. It could be anything else you want to do in life. But then it's like, yeah, I have these financial obligations that I have to meet. Um, and at the same time, I want to do these other things. I mean, what is the balance? Personally, there is no right answer. I think. I mean, it's very difficult to exactly say what should be the right answer. But I think from my point of view, and I'll just share from my experience. For me, it became more clear in the sense that I was like, what are the requirements I have in my life in terms of financial responsibilities, or how much money do I need to, and what do I need to spend the money on. And once I you know have that much, then I personally thought that I want to grow as a person, and I want to develop these skills, and I can do this by spending more time, whether it is with a spiritual organization, or doing other things. And so I try and dedicate my time more there. um, so it's actually it's a very difficult question to answer, to say you should do this. I think there's no one answer fits all. I think you have to look at it from every person's situation. um, Everyone has a drive, but then ultimately, yeah, I mean, you can have the drive to earn money, but if that is the only drive, eventually there is no end to it, because there is no end to how much money you can make. So I think it's always nice to have some other ambitions and aspirations as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I think also, just to follow up on Rishi's question, I think the one aspect of our generation, at least, is that we are all in a rush all the time to get things
Yep.
done, right? And it's just a result of the circumstances we are in, because we always, in social media, everyone's sharing everything about themselves, right? And then we see all these successful athletes, youngest World Cup winner, youngest artist to get this many streams, youngest
It's like a
Youngest
billionaire
FIDE
with
race.
rated player.
youngest 3D
3 years old. I
player.
was like, wow.
Crazy.
Oh,
So
wow.
every the thing now is like youngest, and so we're all in that race to like just get things done. And think like when you're 20 years old, you're thinking, oh my god, you're so old at 20. But then at 25, thinking, oh my god, you're so old at 25, and looking at 20 and saying it's so young. And I'm sure when you're 30, you'll go crazy and be like, we're so old, but looking back at 25, you're so young. And there's just so much time, but
Mm.
it's so hard to apply that in reality, because just everything around you is just moving so fast, and just to like,
Honestly, yes, midlife crisis has been brought forward by, I think, a good 20 years.
yeah, exactly. And it's,
I think, I mean, I honestly, I'll be honest. Like, I am guilty of that as well. Like, that feeling of
I
I
think we
want to
all
achieve
are.
everything. I
Yeah,
think,
I
yeah,
think we all
exactly.
are,
I
to be
mean,
honest. Yeah, so am I.
I say I'm like 26, and I'm like, oh, I should have achieved this. But then at the same time, I think if you take a step back, and personally, when I sit down and I'm like, I look through, I think some of the some of the experience that stayed with me for a long time was, I think, when I was in school. There was always, people, they're high achievers in school, people who are good at everything, whether it's sports, whether it's academics, whether it's, debate. I don't know, they're involved in everything. And then in school there was always this fear that, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this, otherwise you'll not get into a good uni, or you need to do this. If you don't do this, you'll not get into this. And there was a period of that time where I was in constant, like, oh, stress of, wait, am I going to get into a good uni, am I going to get into any uni for that matter, like. But then I look at it now, like 3-4 years, or I mean, what's been 8 years now, probably since since that time. You're like, it's not that bad. Actually, I didn't end up going to a uni I wanted to go to. But I would say it happened for the best. I really loved my time there. I actually, enjoyed my time there. And I think when I look back, I'm like, we in the moment we are constantly worried about the future, or constantly like what will happen, what will not happen. But we forget to live in the present. You know what I mean? It's and I feel I personally want to make sure, or try and practice that, want to live in the moment, enjoy the small pleasures of life, whether it is going out with friends or whatever it is. Like, I think we have to do it, because look, there are people, yes, who will be the best in the world in this and best in that, but not everyone has to be that. You know what I mean, it's good to always have the ambition to do better and to improve yourself. But to be the best, I think, is like, I mean, there is something that's healthy competition, and at some point it's not beneficial to anyone. And I think at some point it gets to that point where we're very insecure about ourselves. So I personally am as well, and I'm constantly working to find or see ways where I can change that. Like, where I'm comfortable being who I am, because I have, like my personality. I try and understand it. I think I'm very introverted, so it's very difficult for me to actually go and speak to someone I do not know. I will not make the effort to go and speak to somebody I do not know. Not because I don't want to. It's just I'm so scared. Or what if they don't speak to me? Or what if they do this to me? Or what if they don't? And one way of clearing that is either you go and you speak to them and you find out that actually everyone is nice, and people are willing to speak to you. I've still not got the courage to do that in a lot of cases. But a lot of times, I think just accepting who I am in terms of, this is my personality, this is what I want to achieve, and this is what I can achieve, and there is a gap between that. So you try and bridge the gap, whether it's a skills gap or whatever it is you can learn or you can develop. You try and bridge the gap as much as you can, but ultimately accepting, you don't want to push yourself too much that you hate yourself as well. And I think I feel, I did that a lot. And I'm trying to work on that, where I'm comfortable, or try and being comfortable with where I am, with who I am. And I think that helps somewhat. I think generally you just, it's fine, just be happy. What's the big deal? What's the worst that can happen?
Raju, just before you ask the next question, honestly, I think that was amazing. Every single aspect, every single word, every single sentence and paragraph you just said was amazing. It left me speechless. Any question that could come into my head, you answered it before I could think of it. I think a lot of people there that have a lot of thoughts on a lot of things you've said. Actually, it's amazing. Like, I just gotta say, thanks for sharing that. Like, genuinely, it's amazing.
Yeah, I know that was really well put. And also, just to follow up on that, yeah, as you said, I think we're all fighting our own demons in some way or another. But I don't know if you guys have seen this video, and I don't know if anyone who's listening has seen it. It's called "Everyone's Free to Wear Sunscreen." It's a really old
Yep.
video. I think it was in 1997 or something. So basically, it was written in a newspaper article by this lady, and then it was narrated by this guy called Baz Luhrmann, who's a Hollywood film director. And I really recommend everyone to go listen to it on YouTube. And it says some really beautiful things about just general things to approach life, things about age and the way you look, and just how to have a better attitude towards life. And one line that is really related to what we were just talking about is where he says, "Don't waste your time on jealousy. Sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind. The race is long, and in the end, it's only with yourself." So I think that's a really good
Oh,
motto
wow.
to
Yeah,
have.
honestly,
Amazing.
Rajat, I have heard that song. Honestly, it's amazing. And
Yeah.
by the way, if anyone wants to, because okay, it's a speech, right? He's talking about this. So if you want to enjoy listening to it as well, there is a tropical mix. Just go on YouTube, type in exactly what he said, type in tropical mix, listen to it. It's
Yeah.
amazing. You can even dance to it in the shower, and it hits hard. Trust me, it is so good.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. I listen to it from time to time when when you're feeling down and stuff, because he has some really poignant things to say. So really recommend everyone to go and listen to it. But before we actually end, Kushil, you just want to end up on, so I think we can finally reveal this now that you are leaving your job as electrical engineer to go volunteer for the Dada Bhagwan Foundation in India. And so, just do you want to just quickly brief about why you made the decision and what are you going to be doing there?
Yeah, it's yeah, definitely in some way it seems like a big big move or something like that. So yes, as you mentioned, I am leaving my job in the UK, and moving to India. But I think for me, it's something that I've wanted to do. I think for a long time. So as I mentioned, the organization has had a profound impact on me. The teachings of Dada Bhagwan have had a profound impact on me, and what I realized is I am more happy when I am trying to develop myself, learn from this, and also help in Dada Bhagwan's mission of spreading this basically to the rest of the world. So yeah, I'm willing to help in any small way I can, and that's basically why I've decided to move. I looked at my financial situation, and how much would I need for to live, and um, covering all of that. I feel probably it's the right time right now, and then of course I have the support of my friends and family as well. So that helps a lot. But yeah, that is why I'm moving. Probably maybe at some point we can discuss how that goes and what I'm doing there, and
Bring you on
how
for
it actually is.
yeah, bring you on for part 2 to talk
Yeah,
about it.
exactly.
If this
Honestly,
Maybe
episode
you
honestly,
lasts.
guys
mad respect
you
to
guys come
you.
there, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'll show you. I'll give you a tour of exactly. We can do a live podcast of.
Yeah, that would be good. But as I was saying, like honestly, mad respect for you. For following what makes you happy. It's not easy to do that. You give up a lot because of a lot of how do you say, watchful eyes or criticism, or oh, how can he change, or how can he do that? But honestly, a lot of credit to you. And I really, it will work. I know it will work. I hope it works. It will work, and it'll make you bloody happy.
No, I appreciate the confidence and like the amazing support, but I was just sharing this with Raju a few days ago actually. That like it's difficult, like you to some degree. I feel like yes, you feel the importance here because now you're about to leave. That uh, I feel like I'm having an impact here, but at the same time, I ask myself, this is something I wanted to do for a long time. um, and yes, there are opportunities here that I can see that I'm foregoing, but I ask myself, if I don't do it, will I be happier to stay here and continue with this, or is it worth taking the risk? It's fine to fail, and it's fine that it doesn't work out, but is it will I regret it more if I stay here and continue building my life here, or move there, take the risk, take the chance, and see what happens, and I felt that I feel I'll much better off going there. Just thinking about me staying here, I think, scares me as well, or makes me like, I think in the future I'll regret it, and I just don't want that. And so I'm like, I think it's the right time probably, and to go and try something new as well, see what it is.
Yeah. And I think what we were saying as well is that you, even if for some reason it doesn't work out, you'd regret more not going than you regret going, right?
Exactly.
And also just remind, like, another quote from actually that everybody wears feel free to wear sunscreen speech. He says,
I want to
whatever
listen to
you
that tonight,
do,
by the way. Like
yeah,
honestly, what the tropic
he says
topics in
basically
the
what,
shower. It's gonna be good.
yeah, yeah. He says basically, whatever you do, don't congratulate yourself too much or berate yourself either. Your choices are half chance, and so are everybody else's. So I think it
Wow.
applies for
Facts.
everything in life, right? If you
Yeah.
feel something, go for it. Whether it happens or not, at least you've had a go. So
Yeah, at least you
nice. I
tried. It's,
mean,
it's true. You don't have
yeah,
regret because you tried. Like there's no worse feeling than not trying. Honestly.
Yeah, and I think every experience makes you better off. So you need to have
Correct.
fun. I think you need to. I think constantly have fun. I think you cannot be miserable for even a second. I mean, I think life is fairly short. You have to enjoy every
True.
moment of it. I mean,
True.
challenges will come, but we have to always. I think only way you can deal with challenges is by being optimistic. Being hopeful and being positive. I think we should, try and emulate that, I guess. But that's what at least I'm trying to emulate anyway.
Yeah. Nice. Amazing. Amazing. This has been, I mean, wow, what a great conversation. It has gone a completely different angle than what we thought it would go.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
it's been so interesting and so poignant as well to talk and listen about these things. Um, but before we end it, we have one last final segment.
Sorry, I have a question for you, Rajat,
Yeah, go
and
for it.
Rishi
Go.
as
Interesting.
well. So,
Yeah.
since you've started this podcast,
Yeah.
do you guys make an effort to go and read like the dictionary to get new words or the thesaurus to get new words like like poignant and or I don't know like this different words. I feel like do you do that, or is it just naturally now you guys are podcast hosts, so
Look,
it's just natural?
I generally hate reading. I will read if I have to. I do not like reading. You tell me to watch a series and read the subtitles, that's fine. But no, don't expect me to go and read the source.
No, no, I mean to be no, I haven't. I think it just maybe it's come naturally, and I think for both of us as well. We have done quite a few episodes by now, so we have gotten into the flow of things. I think probably the first few episodes were a bit scratchy here and there, but I guess it just comes when in the setting, I definitely wouldn't say poignant in a normal conversation for
Conversation.
sure.
No, but it's amazing. Honestly, I've been following your podcasts, and it's
Do
it's fun, to
appreciate.
be honest. It's fun listening to you
Thank
guys,
you.
and also fun listening to some of your guests have been friends as well. So it's fun hearing
Yes,
their views and their take on life and different matters as well. So it's
yes.
I think it's a good job you guys are doing. I think it's fun to hear these stories.
No, thank you
No,
very
thanks,
much.
thanks.
Thank you. Now, before we finish it off, we have one last final segment. And
Yep.
Rishi, do you want to take it away with the final segment?
No problem, no problem. Yeah, we got a rapid fire question for you. Let's see what you got. I'm gonna ask you 7 questions, and it'll be good for us and everyone listening in to hear what you have to say. All right. Question number 1: if you could meet any 3 people, dead or alive, who would you meet?
Ooh, tough question. Generally, my perspective in life right now is I meet people if I meet them. I think, I mean, it's rapid fire, so I don't want to explain too much, but uh, just to clarify the question, meet them as in meet them for 1 hour or meet them for like as long as I want?
Um,
To be
up to you.
well, you
Up to
you
you.
caught us there. No one.
No, it's no, just because I was like, okay, yeah, meet. If you, I honestly, if someone told me, who would you like to meet and just greet, shake hands with, and I would be like, no one. I mean, shaking hands with
No, you
somebody
can talk
would
to them.
probably not
You
have
can talk to them.
Yeah, you can
much.
talk to them. Yeah.
Yeah, again, I feel like um, probably no one at this point. Not
Oh
because I
wow!
don't admire
Wow,
anyone,
interesting.
or
Very
or
interesting.
think of anyone, but it's
Nice.
because I feel like to actually learn from somebody and to you don't. I mean, so I read a lot, so I feel like I've learned a lot from reading about people's lives, but reading a book is like some guy has this placed out the challenges or the whole big portion of his life in there, and I feel I've learned a lot from that. But meeting somebody for an hour, I feel like just it probably might not be enough for me to learn anything. Probably just I feel like I'm a slow learner that way. I probably need to observe a lot more, observe the way they behave, observe the way they do things, and that way I think that's why I would say no one. But at the same time, I mean, there are loads of people I admire, and um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's something like, yeah, if I meet them, I meet them. If not, it's fine.
Fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
yeah.
Makes sense.
All right, right. I think that's a good answer. That's a very interesting one, but that was nice. All right. Let me go to question number 2. What song recommendation would you give to anyone listening in?
I listen to very different sort of music, which is bhajans or spiritual songs or stuff like that. So I don't know how many of your viewers might
Do
be
you have
interested
something
in that.
that do you have something that hits the feels? You know, like the-
There are a lot, to be honest. There are a
okay,
lot. I think you can find probably a lot on the website. I usually, depending on the mood, if it's something upbeat, then I look for something with like a lot of beats and stuff. Yeah, I don't think there is anything specific, but yeah, I listen more to that. So
okay.
All right, all right, all right. But okay, give us any song name. Beat spiritual. It's fine.
I'll maybe I can play something for you. I don't know. I'll send you something. Maybe you can put it
All right, we're done.
in the
Done.
clip.
We'll
Done. Yeah.
done.
That way, at least
All right.
instead of me just saying it, they've heard it.
Yeah,
Okay,
good
interesting.
idea.
I like that. But
Song I send you will have no copyright, so you're free to
Okay, good.
put it up.
that that's good to hear. That's good to hear. But all right, question number 3. What hobby do you have outside work, excluding the entire second half of the podcast?
um, Apart from that, I think I like to read a lot these days. So yeah, I tend to read a lot of nonfiction books. So I mean, I read either biographies of people that I might be interested in. I read psychology books, behavioral economics, stuff like that. So those are the sort of things I'm interested in.
Can you give one book
Yeah, I
recommendation?
would say that one book recommendation. Um, I mean, there are lots of good books I've read, but I think one book that changed my perspective on how I look at things is Peter
Oh
Crouch's
wow,
book.
really?
Yeah, and I tell you why. I mean, it's a really good book, really funny. So Peter Crouch is a footballer for those who don't know him, and I don't know if I should say it on a podcast publicly. It's some For a long time I didn't really think of Peter Crouch as one of the best footballers, right? So I always thought always thought of him like like, yeah, he's a striker, he's played for England and all these kind of, but he was not like world class, or he was not the best, basically, I would put it that way. And that's just my opinion. But I came across his book on multiple times. So when I go looking for books, I came across his book multiple times, whether at the airport, at the bookshop, at different places, and I avoided it for some reason or the other. And then for some reason I went like the fourth or fifth time, and it flashed to my face, uh, and it was for like £1. So I was like, okay, for £1 surely I can buy this, right? So I bought it, and trust me, like, it changed the way I look at it. The guy is amazing. Like, he's an amazing storyteller. I think he was really funny about how he explained all the stuff, of all the experiences he had while in football. And honestly, it changed my perception of him as a human. Forget the football and all of that. I think, um, I would say I was honestly, like, me, all those times saying no because of my opinion of him not being, a great footballer, in my opinion. I kept avoiding reading it, but after picking it up and reading it, I think it changed, and I think it just changed my perspective generally. When I look at somebody, it's always nice to give them the benefit of the doubt. You can have opinions about everybody, but that doesn't mean they're bad people, and they're always, somebody has something good to offer. So I think that book changed how I look at things very drastically. One, because the book was amazing, really funny. If you want to read it, go and read it. I would highly recommend it. But that the backstory for me is this,
Wow,
basically.
Nice,
wow.
nice. Ah, great answer.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. All right. The next question: what is your favorite quote? Yep.
Favorite quote? Ooh, tough. I'm not good at remembering quotes generally, but one thing that resonates very well with me is, I mean, it's not a quote I have made, it's not a quote I have said, it's not a, yeah, it's I don't know who said it probably, but something in the lines of, probably just nothing in I well nothing no nothing, well, you'll have to edit this quite a bit,
Yeah.
but um nothing in the world should disturb my
Oh wow.
happiness is basically something I would go with. I don't think it's an actual quote, or it's something I'm probably quoting from somebody, or like, you know saying it in my own words, but it really resonated well with me, so yeah, I think that's
That's
something.
yeah. I mean, that's really good to be honest. All right. The next question, and actually, sorry. So we're going to stick to 6 questions this time, but the second last question: what advice would you give to any new students, any new graduates coming out of uni? Which and they're struggling to move on, or find the direction which to move in, because I feel like that's generally becoming such a big problem currently. Before you get a degree and getting jobs so much easier. Right now, it's just a lot more difficult. So, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think you have to just keep going, don't lose hope, don't lose, there's always something that is there, so you have to keep going, do something, do something, don't just give up. Yeah, you have to keep going, like, and you will find something ultimately, doing something that you don't like, or doing something that you may not want to do in the future, doesn't mean that you'll not learn anything from it. So, whatever comes, at least, be open to try something new, is what I would say. And sometimes you'll realize something you really want to do, you'll realize in a year or 2 years that you really don't want to do that. So, I mean, just be open, whatever comes, any opportunity that comes, be open to take it.
Wow, I think yeah, that's. I felt like that was the right question to ask you, considering how the podcast has gone. I think everyone can agree on that. That was really good. All right, and the final question of the evening. It's been a very long but very very informative evening. All right, if you could travel back in time, what period would you go to and why?
Ooh, this is difficult, isn't it? um, I would. Ooh, I think I'm more of a person live in the present, so I don't want to travel, I think, back in the past. I believe that I've traveled, I think maybe out of arrogance or out of just knowing things, I don't know, or not knowing things. I think I've traveled everywhere, I'm satisfied. I don't know. I've not traveled
Are there any
any
points in
places. I
Are
mean,
there
I
any
do want
points
to.
in history that you are fascinated by?
Not really. I think it's a natural. I look at it as a natural order
No,
of
like okay,
things.
look, you'll come
Just
back to the
generally.
present, but you're
And
just gonna go stop on by, in any point in time. You have the option to, in this case.
if I do, if I do, I would like to go to a few years ago. Not even that far, because I don't think that far behind. I don't know too much about history apart from what I was taught in school, and so I was not really interested in that much. But what I would want to go back to maybe is maybe 20, 30 years ago, maybe in the 1970s or 80s, and spend time when Dada Bhagwan himself was traveling around in India and around the world. Maybe go and try to spend some time, a month with him traveling
Wow, wow. I
somewhere,
mean,
Great,
fair enough,
amazing.
fair enough.
or more.
Definitely, every
Yes.
single
Yeah,
guest we've had on this podcast has had completely different answers from each other. It is very unique,
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
very
This is
interesting to
very
see
interesting.
everyone's different perspectives. For us as well, it's a very big
Mm.
learning curve.
yeah,
But we do really appreciate that.
it's amazing. Given that or you might have known some of these people for a long time as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, definitely.
Correct.
It's amazing, that people can surprise you every day.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think very much so. But that brings us to the end of the podcast. All to all our viewers, thank you for sticking with us till the end. If you have stuck with us till the end, um, you know. But yeah,
I don't see any reason why you shouldn't have, like, this was a very, very very, I think, interesting discussion.
yeah.
A lot of valuable things were said, and yeah,
No, there's a
I
lot
think people will
that
take a lot
hits.
away from this.
Yeah, there's a lot that hits hard,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it is. a very good one to listen to. We always recommend you listen to it. But as usual, folks, like, subscribe, send us any messages if you want to be on the podcast, if you want some information, if you want to reach out to Kushil as well, feel free. He's always available once a year. You know,
Yes.
so yeah, that's it for me, guys. And over to you, Raju.
Yes, and also our podcasts are available now on Spotify and on YouTube. So wherever you're listening, give us that thumbs up. If you're on Spotify, give us rate 5-star ratings. If you don't like it, don't give us any ratings. But if you do like it, give us 5 stars. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. And yes, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Kushil, for joining again.
Yep.
And we will see.
No, amazing. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And yeah, as I said, I love the podcast. Love the stories that are coming out. So I'll be looking forward to listening to a lot of the stories from
Yeah,
all the
and like
people.
Kushil, the rest of you, I hope are also looking forward to listening to our next episodes. And yes, we will see you. Like, Rishi, what do you want to say? You want to say something?
Yeah, no, we will definitely go to India, where Kushal is, in quite a few years to see what's been
Yeah,
happening, what's transpired, what's new, and what other amazing advice he can give on to, well, everyone, doesn't matter the age or where you are, but I personally am looking forward to it. So that's all for me, guys.
correct, correct. Yes, thank you everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye
Woohoo.
bye.